Hey everyone, how are you today? I hope things have been good in your part of the world. Doing good in my part. Interesting, exciting times. Yeah, we can do interesting. That's fine. That's fine, Darius. So we have been on a mini series delving, like kind of dipping our feet into the creative industry with this series, Lights, Camera, Action. And it's been really interesting. And we've gotten such great feedback that we know we are coming back to delve more into this. Why is this a business on its own? Why is this something that we should be interested in? Remember, it's called the film business, not just the film for entertainment. Yes. So we've spoken to a director, sorry, producer, we've spoken to an actor, we've spoken to someone in the film festival space. And to round up the series, we are going to speak to a director. Now, our first guest, Chris O'Day of Sozo Films, he shared some interesting, how do I say, yeah, insights about the world of film with us. And one thing that's stuck in our mind is the fact that he sees film as a coalition of all different creative expressions. Says poetry, says the spoken word, says the lighting, art, fashion, music, so many things all packed into the world of film, And he also said one other thing, that a good filmmaker learns to respect other artists who bring in different things, who bring in their different skills, And this is one of the skills that we're looking at. We looked at the skill of an actor in interpreting, I was going to say brief, that's the word I come from, not a brief, but interpreting a script and bringing characters to life, and what the marketers do, what the film festivals do, what the value is. So now we're going to look at the person who brings it all together, and that is the director. So today, our sub-theme is, lights, camera, action, and we're going to talk about the director's cut. And our guest today is Tolu Ajayi. He's a creative director, he's a film director, and he will delve more into the world of film and television production from that perspective. Tolu, you're welcome.
Good morning, Julia. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you today. Great to have you. Now you're going to have to sit through this part where we're going to read your CV. I'm sure you sat through it many times. I never quite know what to do at that time.
Around.
Do I look at my nails? Do I look at what?
Yeah. Or just nod.
Yeah, just nod. Yeah. Say that's me.
It's true.
So Tolu Ajayi, I will call him Tolu Ajayi because you guys already know that I have a problem with my tongue, right? My effing tongue, I can talk about it. Tolu Ajayi is a film and TV director. He's a creative professional with experience in advertising, broadcast production, and filmmaking. Before pivoting into filmmaking, Tolu had 22-year advertising career. Tolu, I didn't know it was 22 years, until I read your bio. 22 years, where did the years go? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I had a 22-year advertising career, creating some of Nigeria's advertising's most memorable moments. And I can attest to that because we worked together for some of those 22 years. Yes, we did. And his career in film began as the director on Mnet's Tinsel. The series is still running now. And that was in 2008. And from there, he went on to work on other series like Ndani's Giddy Up, Ebony Lives, Paradise Way, MTV Sugar Season 6 in 2017 and Season 7, 2019. Tolu's films explore a wide range of social and human issues and have garnered critical acclaim and recognition and plenty of awards as well. Some of his films include The Encounter, which won the AMVCA That's African Magic Viewers Choice Awards for Best Sound in 2017 and AFRIF Jury Selection in 2010. Closed, which won a bronze Loerie. Did I say that well? Loerie?
Yes, yes, yes.
Loerie in 2018. First, finalist in We Art Water Film Festival in Spain, and Training Day, which won the Best Director in Amsterdam, ARFF. What does that stand for, ARFF?
I forget, but it's Amsterdam is in it somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And in 2019, Tolu and Up in the Sky hosted the first Nigerian agency storytelling workshop at the Cannes Golden Lions International Festival of Creativity in Cannes, France. And his feature film, Over the Bridge, will be released in 2023. This is not the extent of Tolu's body of work, and I will ask him a bit more about that as we delve in. But for now, you can check out his filmography at www.tolulopeajayi.com and also see some of his work on YouTube at Tolu Lope Ajayi. Look for the one that the person that there are a few Tolu Lope Ajayis online, but look for the one that looks like him, right? And look for his film.
Yes.
I know he told me to look out for. So I didn't do my homework. I'm sorry, but I will do it. Look for The Encounter and look for A New You. Those are good to start you off. But Tolu, you know, when I first took notes of your filmography, it was more. There was a short film you did, and this was I don't know if you produced or directed or you did all together, you know. And it was this person caught in water. Do you remember that film? You should. It's one of your
Yes, that's my first. Blink. That was the first short film I made.
Yes. Now, what made you do that jump, make that jump from advertising? Well, you haven't fully left advertising commercials, but what made you feel that you wanted to tell a different story?
Well, I think at a certain point in time, I had started to feel the constraints. I recall was just shortly after my foray in Mnet. I just took a look into the future, and you know, the web. I saw us putting too much effort in advertising into really short things, and I felt there was a lot of possibility for extension. I was also working with a lot of commercial directors, one in which really influenced me, who was actively making movies. So
I think I know who you mean.
Yes, his name is Howard Ford. Femi Odubemi to also.
Yeah, it was Femi. I thought you were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Femi first was Femi first. Femi, with Femi, I could predict Femi's movements were things in Nigeria that I found them very inspirational. Then I was actually a character in Howard's film. So Howard was making this film in Burkina Faso, and he saw me as this soldier. So he asked me to come. So I flew to Burkina Faso and I played this character very briefly. We had weapons training. It was a lot of adults, grown-up fun. So I was lugging an AK-47 around, trying to look menacing, and and I came back shortly around that time too. Femi invited me to come. This is all happened around 2007, 2008. And I was at that time there was a lot of so I was asking them, okay, we're going to spend 6 months preparing to do a commercial of 45 seconds. And I was seeing people in real time making work that was legacy, much more impactful. And it was still pretty much the same thing. The quality was fantastic. Then, so when Femi invited me to come and be a director the very first time on Tinsel, I said I have to do this. Everything is saying move in this direction.
Okay. So how did you jump into doing your first short film? When was Blink shot? Because I know I watched it.
Okay, so Blink was after. So after I'd done, I think I did Blink in 2010. So I did like about 9 months in with Mnet. I came back into advertising. At that time, I started Lucid. I was running, and I said, listen, like, okay, we've done a broadcast television. So one of my friends called me. I said, listen, what are we making our first short? That's the next thing we should be making a short film. And I said, yeah. I said, yeah. And the idea for Blink, I said, okay, yes, let's all make a short film. It's a short. So it was something I thought about doing, but when I now started to think about what I would make, I saw there was this girl who was married. I think she was married to a pastor. It was a big story. It was a big gender GBV story. She was killed. Her husband was a pastor in a Redeemed church. So the parents apparently lived 3 doors down or 5 doors down from my house. So when they were doing the wake or they put the poster on the street. So one of the posters was on my gate. So I recall I was thinking, I had the short film idea in my head. I have to make a short film. I have to make it really good, but I didn't have a core. And my stories always stem from something I sort of know or I've come in contact with, or idea I'm somewhat either curious about and I saw the poster and I said, what would be the biggest punishment for a man who stabbed his wife 30 times? I said, what kind of punishment would it be for a man who did this vile thing? Because I knew about the story. And as I was opening my gate, I didn't have a gate man, I just opened the gate to come in. I was just thinking about the story. And I thought about a repetitive punishment. Like if you're in hell, but you're cyclical. And I said, oh, okay. I said, oh, and I started to graft other story layers onto it. And not to make it obvious, to have the audience not knowing which side to be on or what's really I had to make it the most non-predictable film that I knew of at that time. And so I started the story from there. And I also based the story on some of the things I was really afraid of. I dream a lot, and I fear about dreams crossing into reality. Yeah, I always, imagine bringing something from your dream into real life. So I bring it based on things that would make me afraid, like being trapped in water. So it's a version of claustrophobia. Then also drowning, and I like water a lot. I swim a lot, but the idea of drowning itself I found it very kind of unpleasant. So then a sudden, what do I call it again? Like a sudden accident, something that just come out of the blue. You don't expect it. It's like that was something too. I felt it was scary. Then the third thing, I wanted it to be based around 3 visual, moments, sort of, and the third one was discovering that all along you are evil. Something, just knowing that there's internally there's something wrong with you. That there's, and you discover that, it's staring into the mirror, like, are you really okay? Or when mental illness begins and you start to have schizophrenic breakdowns and you see yourself as something else. So those 3 ideas were things I really wanted to sort of feature in the film. And I got the name Blink from Ari. When you're getting into, when you're dreaming, when you start dreaming, you have REM, yeah, and there's a lot of eye movements under the eyelids. So that's where the title of the film came from. Yeah, and I made the film in 8 months because I didn't know how to make short films then. So I'd always make it when I had money or when I had money to spare. So I had a very budget friendly idea. So to do the underwater scene, I produced, directed, I did some writing.
Did
Then
you
a friend
write
of
it?
mine,
Okay.
yeah, I did the writing, but I wrote it in prose. I wrote it long form. So I didn't know how to write a screenplay. So a friend of mine now took it, trimmed it for me. His name is Victor Sanchez. He works for MNet now. We're all directors on
Oh
Tinso's,
yeah. I know of him. I don't know him. I know of him.
Yeah.
There's a series he did that I followed. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, he took the idea and said to me, this is too wordy. I don't know. I'll just prose all over the place. Said no, keep it short, keep it tidy, da 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 da. So he really arranged the script to something that was close. Then I would shoot it in sequences. So the first thing I shot was the underwater scene because that took a lot to do. And the actor wasn't a great swimmer at the time. They didn't. So I would take him to the pool because it was Ivory Health Club and it was down down Allen, off Allen. So I would go there, then we would rehearse it, and he would learn how to hold his breath because he had to learn how to hold his breath he had to do at least 40 seconds for me to get something to film. I'm a bit of a better breath holder, so I can do it for 2 minutes, but I would go down and I'll wait for him. Strangely enough, I just found the videos of the behind the scenes for that. So I can share them with you if you're interested in editing.
Oh yeah, that would be nice. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very, very clunky. So to keep myself down because I was buoyant and to film him. So I went to meet the owner of Ivory, being that I was a long term, he knew me as a member. So I said to him, I'll do him a deal, or I'll barter the deal with him that I'll shoot their documentary. They wanted to do anything for the internet, which was the growing internet of 2010, 2011, and I could do a documentary for them. They would give me 3 days in the pool because I knew we couldn't finish everything in one day because we're working with the sun. We didn't have the kind of budget we didn't have Hollywood budgets that you could bring lights on the water or anything. So I knew I could only work from maybe about 4 hours in the morning. And you have to track where the sun is going because that small sequence was shot over 2 days. Wow. The first day the sun was behind the clouds. Then I needed to shoot different sizes. So I need to shoot the close up and come back to the wide. But on day two was phenomenal. Day two, we just had the sun coming in. It was very soft, very nice. And I wasn't meant to be cameraman, but I ended up doing a lot of camera work on the underwater sequence. So I had a small camera and I put it inside an underwater case. I had one throwaway tripod that I knew was going to be damaged because it would rust from the chlorine and the water. I put it underneath. I went to get weights from the machine. I had to weigh myself, so I got a bungee cord, put weights around myself. I sat inside the water. I put a plastic chair from Ivory inside the water. We put weights on it to keep it down there. He now, so what Demi would do, Demi would come down, hold his breath for 40 minutes, act out the whole sequence, which I had storyboarded. I'm not sure I'm in water. I'm in water. Oh my God, I have to escape. We'll try and do all of that, then we'll come up, right? Then he was uncomfortable because the water was very chlorinated, his eyes stung. But we did it. We just kept on doing it, kept on. And I recall the other cameraman who was supposed to be with me, who couldn't swim so well, Banjo, he had to do behind the scenes because he couldn't do the filming. And we did that sequence. Then I waited for a while. Then I realized that rather than renting locations, I could basically make everything around my office on what's the name of the street? The street off Oitola Street. I forgot the name. Now, so to make it budget conscious, I put everything in one inside I shot the bedroom scene, in the office, around my office. I got a production designer to come and make it into a bedroom. The hospital scene, I shot in the boardroom.
Yeah.
We moved out boardroom stuff. We put in hospital stuff. Their car accident was right in front of the office. So the idea for a short film is to always use what you know and to always keep it contained, then, but to fill it with enough events and moments that it moves forward. Yeah.
So it means that there's a different protocol process for a short film than for a full length. Is there?
Well, true, and it depends on what your objectives are. So that short film, I made that short film as my calling card into Nollywood.
Okay.
So all the things I wanted Nollywood to know that were possible that I could do underwater scenes. I could do. I had the creativity to do visual effects in a way films at that time weren't doing it. So I wanted them to see how cool. I wanted to make horror films that were very modern. So all the things I sort of wanted people to hire me for, I put into the film. And I also had to make it cost effective because I didn't have the budget. Nowadays, the kind of short films I make are like featurettes. They're almost features, but they're all much more contained. But I made, for those reasons, yes, I made it like that time.
So essentially, you bootstrapped it.
Yes, I bootstrapped it.
Okay.
Entirely.
Why I'm saying is that a lot of people, when we're getting into this world, or as we got into this world of the creative enterprise, people seem to think that it's not a business, but it is a business as well. And I'd like to get into that, as we talk about it later. But I want to go back to something that Chris O'Day had said, and which is that in film you have everything. There's the nexus of all the skills, the talents, etc., that you could ever think of, all the creative, well, most of all the creative talent. So what do you think? What's your take on that?
Yes, it is. It's a gathering place of every talent, and there's so much in the value chain. But when you look at the stuff, when I was in advertisers, where a producer, and I forget his name, he was a South African producer, very cheeky guy. He was there were two brothers. You might remember him.
The Opens.
They produced a lot of they produced a lot of our shows. Yeah, Opens, yeah, the Opens. Was Opens, yeah, Titus, yeah. So Titus taught me, what he taught me was the stuff that's in front of the camera as well as the stuff behind the camera. And I learned the difference between that. So when you think about the nexus of all things, you have to break it down into what's the stuff in front of the camera and the stuff that's behind the camera. Behind the camera is an army, an organizational moving army of talents, from strategy to project planning and all that. You have really great thinkers. There's even something I believe, and that I know from advertising, is research. But I'm going to get to that point really, really soon, because it's something I really believe strongly in, and I have to probably come up with a way to discuss. But in front of the camera, you have all the exhibition. The French, what's it called again? The funny thing about it is like, oh, this stuff is jumping out of my head. So all the theatrical elements, I'm going to call it that. There's actually a French word for it. But all the theatrical elements all are assembled in front of the camera. And you have the people who perform, you have the design element, which is production, that's production design, based on art direction, the sets, because everything is a choice. Everything that's supposed to be in frame is a deliberate choice by a director. So you have that talent there. You have the person who decides to perform the part of the character, who has invested in not only just being present, but also decided to wear the uniform of a character internally and coming out externally. You now have the person that's going to dress that character, that's with the wardrobe department. You have whatever the character is holding, which is the props department, also under production design. You now have the camera, the device that records it all. And that's the choices of what to put on the camera, how to set the camera, what movement is on the camera. That's another aspect of the director's work, which is directing the camera. Mm-hmm. Okay, what lens choice are we making here? Why? What are we telling people? Because our job, on the directing side, is to translate a story idea into something meaningful for people who are watching. So all these talents all come together. You have lighting, the guys, the electric department with gaffers and best boys who would rig elaborate systems of lights you're not supposed to see. They're supposed to feel the lights. Right. They're not supposed to see an actual set lights there. And it's supposed to give you some kind of idea, aside from illuminating or not illuminating the character. It's supposed to give you an idea or some kind of mood we want you to feel. Then
there's music, sound.
Yeah, sound. You have the people who would get what they're saying, what people are actually saying. So there's so many on the technical and artistic side. It is a community. It's really a hub of talents. Creating, like a prism. Just white light is broken down into multiple, multiple segments of other different colors of lights all coming together. It's literally that everybody's coming together to create this art form, and it's amazing. It's pretty amazing. The person has to direct that. That's should be the work of the director.
So how do you keep the different parts? It's like so many balls you're juggling.
Yeah, yes.
How do you keep them all in the air? How do you do it? And then how do you do it across the different? I know there's the pre-production, the production, and the post-production. Okay.
You probably know it. For me, no, from commercial. So a large part of my education came from really looking over people's shoulders. So I work most effectively in pre-production. Pre-production is where I love. Being an ex-illustrator, ex-comic book, I used to draw comic books. So a large part of the creativity for me, I believe creativity should not happen on set. Creativity happens months before I read the script. What do you think about this angle? What if we shot it like this? And you now go to this very elaborate incubation process of beginning to imagine things being. So when you, as a director, you are really, really creative and look for ways to elevate the work by addressing all these players, all these talents. Oh, the wardrobe is going to be this person, and the person is going to do it this way. I'm imagining the wardrobe is going to be this way. I'm imagining this location. This is the kind of location I have in mind. The lighting should be this way. The kind of actor I want has to be this kind of guy. I'm looking for this kind of woman. Then it's kind of ideas I want to do. I want to shoot it with this lens. I want this kind of look and feel on the camera. You start making all these choices, then you put it into a treatment. You now do the really hard work of writing. Sometimes a small novel that is a treatment with pictures and samples and everything else. And that process is where you have added to whatever the script has given to you. You kind of incubate it and it becomes this treatment. Then you need to have great communication skills. So the wardrobe person should know, hopefully 2 months ahead of time, what your ideas are. So she cannot start the process of executing them. The actor, I mean, you can't shoot it. Like one thing I always say, Nigerians always want to do, I keep hearing they're going to do a boxing film. I planned to do a boxing film very early on. I had a great boxing story in mind. And I I just couldn't get an actor to commit to being a boxer, because boxing is not something you just show up and read a script and start to do. You need to learn the technique. You need to go 6 months, go and learn how to box, get your body in shape.
Buff up,
So, yeah, you have to buff up, because people are not going to believe you if you have, what do they call that thing?
A love handle.
A long handle. So they're going to believe you. So I just kept on saying, hey, dude, I paid 20,000 to a boxing trainer to teach the actor. The actor didn't show. This was then. I can't make this movie here. I think I need more money, more commitment, whatever it is, I needed more. So essentially, it's doing a lot of that, communicating to people way ahead of time, people making adjustments for this, we knowing how long we're going to need to do all these things. Then once production starts, you need to now be a very good communicator. And I learned a lot of my practice was really from advertising, of being the person that was talk to the director. The director would say, please tell the agency this, because I was a liaison between both. And it was a great practice for me, because I could see a director swearing in the bluest language, and and I said, oh, there's no way I'm going to tell, say, quote unquote, Julia, what this person just said. so what they just said, I have to put a smiley face on this entire thing and communicate the news in a much more appropriate way. Then the same thing I'll also do is on set, I'll say, okay, what do you think we should do? It's that I empower them by putting the reins in their hands, or in cases where people do not really know what they were supposed to do, I would have to tell them, if I had the solution, how to do it. But the idea is to communicate effectively. And one of the things I met in the earlier version of Nollywood was a lot of people yelling at actors. You have directors standing behind the camera and they'll be yelling at the actors. Now, the idea is, and this is because one of the people that sort of taught me that, he had a different approach to it. So I kind of adopted this approach. I'm already 6'3". I can be imposing when when it is. I really don't want that kind of presence all the time, So because again, there's a lot of reverence I have for the work. I just think it can be fragile sometimes. Sometimes you need to yell at people. If you're directing a street scene and you have a megaphone, people have to hear you talk. There's sometimes
more projection, not anger yelling. That's projection.
Yeah. So I want to go into the dark arts of that aspect.
Let's go there. Yes.
We're going to go there. But generally, this is a working place. So if you have been in a corporate environment, there's some people want to be spoken to. Most people, not all people, want. So I've shown up at work today. Okay, director, what do you do? Everybody comes to work and you sort of create an atmosphere where people feel, okay, yeah, I can do this. So my communication will be, because I learned about, Clint Eastwood doesn't say action, doesn't yell action. The director, Clint Eastwood, from what I heard, what he would do is, he believes anyone that's doing the work of the acting already is character. So he will say stuff like, as you were, he'll come and give you notes in between takes, and he'll just say, as you were. Because he feels that if you call action, it's like you're kickstarting an engine.
Okay.
If the thing was engine was already running, you just ease it into gear or something, right? So it's action. Everybody just jumps and that starts mechanically to be, right? Now, some people need action. If they don't have, some people are, it's like the Pavlov's dog thing. They need that trigger to kick off, right? Some people need to hear it. So it might not be the style that works all the time. But I generally prefer to have conversations than ease off. I have an assistant director sometimes, and because I like watching things happen, I sometimes don't call action. That's just my style. I'll just assistant director say call it, so I'll just tell him to call it, and you hear his voice, and I'll prefer to just watch things happen. So that's a little bit of my style, doing it. Now,
so you have to be a psychologist as well.
Yes, you have to be a psychologist as well. And this is where I'm going to go into the dark arts.
Okay.
So in the dark, some people in this game, in this our game, I call it a game, they need negative reinforcement.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very hard thing to see, but there's just, and in Nigeria, I don't know whether it's a function of the military era of boots stomping on your head. Some people, unless you're imposing and you're creating, I'm not saying be toxic, but if you're not being firm and insistent, it could also be contributing to discipline. So it's that balancing. You have to balance it out. There's some people that just want to be spoken to that way, and it's unfortunate, but it's that energy should be there. You should keep, as they say, you always keep one in the breach. Always leave one bullet inside because that's the case. So yeah, it's that, and it's knowing people who really want to work on sets. So when you see some people, these people they want to be told that their work is pretty. So that these are the people you bring behind the monitor. Come take a look at this. This is amazing. Do you think you can give me another take of that? Right? And do you think you can do it again? And they were like, sure, I'll do it again. Or some people just, some people have to take them, go under a tree somewhere and really, really, and it's sometimes men, with men, you guys are going to go at it. Then you guys will come back, They're like, yeah, it's out now, it's out. It's out here. The bile is out. Now, let's now face work. But then again, yeah, but yelling at generally shouting directions from behind the camera, I don't generally like it, except we're far from each other, or I want you to move into a place where the camera would have the best frame for you. Move to the left, but I'm not going to give you character direction, shouting. Act, no, cry, and you're yelling, you're like 10 feet away. You don't do that. I think that's wrong. And I used to say that. You don't say no, is that how you cry, or stuff like that. Yeah, don't really like it. And I did theater, by the way.
Sorry, you did theater?
Yeah.
Okay. But I was going to ask that during the pre-production meeting, and after the treatments and everything, the director's treatments, which I'm sure you shared with everybody, do the different people, especially the actors, do they also come and tell you, this is how I see it? Do they disagree? Do they push back and say, this is how I see this character?
So it's important. The director has to be more knowledgeable than everyone. Because they're going to have actors who want to bring their, and what you want is for everybody to subscribe. So if an actor is telling me what they see in the character and I may not be completely aligned, there are two ways I do it. If I would explain to you, and this is before we shoot, we would spend time together where would be, hey, what do you think? Give me notes on this character. How do you want to build it? What are the things you want to do? So that you have this. And I'll give you an idea of what that character is. Most of the time, it's in my treatment already. And this is what you're sort of looking for. So if an actor says, I'm thinking we should go in this direction, I'm thinking there are two ways to handle it. If it's in pre-production, you guys spend enough time, then you both cooperate on how best to go about it. If you know the person is off and this person is intractable, you have to change the actor.
Okay.
You have to, because it's not going to be pleasant. And I've been in that kind of situation too, where I thought it could work out, and I could be symbiotic. It did it, you know. But sometimes there's an alchemy that comes out of, let me see what this guy will do. And it's like, maybe maybe this guy is, you know, this energy I bring in. However, it can also be a psychological mind game by difficult people to get you to feel to think less of what you planned and less of your work. Then they don't really actually give you anything. So, but on set, the way to handle it is this: if you are actually working on it, I said, Director, do you think they should move the cup here or here? You know, some people do that and they just want to. And I said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to, you know what? I want you to entertain me. Do it the way you want. Then after you're done doing it the way you want, I'm going to do one in the tape. We'll take a look at it. That's me when I'm being my most collaborative. I just want everyone to feel like they're contributing. Yeah, sure. And in post, it might turn out that they have a really good way. But when I come on set, I want to achieve a specific amount of things. If it's not really aligning with some of the things I want, and I'll look at the actor and be like, oh, this person, what kind of person is this person? Are they really, really subscribing to the idea, or is this some? I said, you know what, let's try it. Let's see. And if you look at it on screen and you go, and it's still fitting with your overall character story. Because you can't just come up with something one day and say, maybe I think you should smoke in the pipe. But the character is a non-smoker.
Yeah.
Right? You just can't try it, you know, because. So I'll be like, okay, let's try this deviation for me. If this detour is all right, sure. And I also want you to feel like you've contributed your best. Fine. Then if there'll be a take of that, then I'd want the take that I really, really needed, as far as it doesn't take too much time, and we'll keep it moving.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just thinking that this is really how do they call it? It's a democracy, but it's not a full democracy. You know.
Can't be.
Yeah.
There's so many horror stories in Hollywood and Nollywood. I don't want to go into them. Major horror stories. So I won't. Yeah.
I want to, and I hope we do have enough time to talk about this, which is part of the ecosystem for the film industry that I believe really builds up that business, you know, makes it a real industry. Because I read somewhere that the creative industry, and that is the total creative industry in Nigeria, contributes, is it 2.3% of the GDP? I don't know. Don't quote me. I read it somewhere recently when I was doing some research. I thought it was more, but maybe I need to go and check the date of that research and see. I thought it was a pretty recent one, but I'll check and see. Yeah, because there's so much happening.
You're right. I think it's more. It's actually one of the few things that's growing. It's growing exponentially. If a film crew comes into town, let's say we go to Kwara State, you know, my old or Calabar, and it's we need say a crew of 100 people come. Now you have to bring everybody in. Sometimes my feature film, which was a little bit was fairly healthy, was our crew was 60. We had a crew of 60. We were moving around Lagos. So that meant the main crew had to stay in one hotel. They had a bus that was filled. We had to get several caterers, lunch, breakfast, lunch, dinner. People had to go to the markets to buy things. We had to do a funeral party. And we had to get yards of Ashwebi. Yards. Right? That people had to make. And we had to make for 50 extras. Right? So the leads, there were about 10 of them. Then all the people in the background were all fitted, and all of them had to have Ashwebi. So that as a whole is tailors are making money. You know, they're going to be tailors that are making money because the wardrobe department is not going to give it to one person. It's going to give it out to as many people as possible. And the caterer, you know, goes to the market. She basically buys a lot of foodstuffs. Then, and we often work with several kinds of caterers. So there are possibly 2 to 3 caterers. The way most really good producers do it is they have a tandem system, a relay system where on 1 week caterer A, another week caterer B, another week caterer C. So they're all able. So if you're shooting for 4 weeks, they're all handing over one after the other to each other. And then you now have the hotel business. During the time we made that film, the owner of the hotel, who typically should get work because it was a Victoria Island hotel, a lot of the business he was getting was from people who were in Abuja and they had to do this conference and they keep people there. And sometimes I see people from Nigerian military or Navy, Army, etc., or people that had to come to, you know, the old civil service area of Victoria Island, you know, and they would do conferences and all that. And now that hotel is known for always housing production crews. Whenever you need to do, because he had a rate system. So if you say we went to Calabar, we went to Lorraine, there's an economic boost from having those people there. Then also, aside from keeping us, we're going to rent locations. All the locations we do, we'll be renting and paying for them. And we'll be doing this in some locations we might need for 4 days, 3 days. So it's sort of crucial. We might need, if the town has, you know, cameras to rent, etc., we'll be renting from those people. Transportation of getting local transportation. We might come with we need your buses. We need to move people about. Like, are you ready for a 1 week contract? You show up at this place, carry people here, there. Then people will fly out when they're done. So the footprint of production, the well-coordinated production leaves behind is a boost. And if that location or that area or that state is super accommodating, it's cyclical. That's why in America, when Atlanta became more, I think it was Georgia as a whole, as a state, started making it easier to film. They took so much business from Los Angeles that was primarily known. Yeah, and now Tyler Perry's built a huge huge studio. Yeah, so Atlanta now rivals, it's a smaller state, but it rivals the state of California that's typically known for being a big film investment. And you could literally have, it's one of the biggest challenges I feel, and I'm going to just go off the tangent a little bit, is if the NTA was doing its work properly, the way the BBC does its work, because I also trained in the BBC. When I did a program on the BBC, I found out that the BBC commissions all the TV programs. So unlike Nigeria, that is mostly an entrepreneurial thing, where people just raise money and go and do their thing, the BBC has a standard and you apply for a grant to do a show. Right? So
but in America, people also raise money as well.
In
America.
UK?
No, in the US.
In America, yes. America definitely is very entrepreneurial as well. America is super entrepreneurial.
Yes.
But in the UK, it's not. It's surprisingly not. Everybody goes to get money from. There's more of a film market in Nigeria than in the UK. It's very strange. But if every state that had an NTA station, right, which is a great distribution channel, took it upon themselves to fund the NTA to give opportunities to filmmakers in that state, it will change everything in entertainment. And not just entertainment, edutainment. Because I even feel entertainment now needs to start to go into education and save education in Nigeria. because people are learning from what they see. So if we're doing more didactic storytelling, which is super important, and I hate to sound like an old guy, but I think didactic storytelling is what we as Africans did well.
You're an old guy. Accept it.
Yeah. I'm the old guy these days. I'm the old guy telling people stories of how it used to be, back then.
But they don't know that you started very young. I can attest to the fact that you started very young.
Well,
I know.
True. I was the official test tube baby of Vessel.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were.
But yeah, I think it's important as states. It needs to be the government needs to get involved get involved in filmmaking, but in supporting it, because one, not everybody's going to be a filmmaker for life. They're able to get skills.
What's going to be a filmmaker for life? Tolu, we're rounding up the first episode. I thought that we'd probably do this in 1 hour, but I think we'll have to spill over and do another session of this. But I want to talk about as we get into the next for the next I'd like to talk about wrap up this thing about the ecosystem, because I believe we need more people, more than the people that we've mentioned right now. We need to have the film critics, we need to have the film historians, we need to have people who write books about this, do academic. Yes. Yeah, we need those people. We need those people within the ecosystem. And let me tell you something before we round up and before you
I totally agree.
Yes, before you speak to that, there's a series I watch when I don't do too much TV, just because I know it messes with my head sometimes, and there's something I watch. It's called Hollywood Porn, as in PAWN. They're porn brokers, right? And they take everything to do with Hollywood and even the entertainment industry, the entertainment business. So you have people coming with clothes that had worn, and they bought it off somebody who was maybe in the wardrobe department, or they bought it at the sale. And this money, this clothes, I mean, they just look like, okay, not as common as this, but they're going for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Or a cup. There's one I saw, like something that Britney Spears had won, or something that Michael Jackson had won. They're going for, and they have this certificate of authenticity, or is it authentication? Yeah, and there is all this thing. We read about all these things. Where is that part of our ecosystem? Where is it? I don't mean people just bashing films, but when you're doing a critique of a film, there has to be a build-up part while you're telling people we could do it differently. Where can we find that? Is that part of the ecosystem?
Yes. So it's part of value creation. The reason why these things are valued so high, one, is the power of the media of that country. Mm-hmm. The people, the fans are subscribed to that idea that this is valuable. Then they export it worldwide, and everybody agrees with America that Michael Jackson is valuable. So everything, even the sweat-stained undies, it's valuable. Sorry. So, but I just wanted to. I find when I saw these or any one of these auction houses does this, I find it a little amusing. It's also the way our art is more valuable when it was stolen and taken away, than it was when it was here as firewood. So it's a function of the arts becoming valuable again. And I want to be very quick, because this is what people, I feel, even someone as yourselves being an advocate for the creative arts. The arts in Yoruba, people call the arts ere. Ere in Yoruba means play. After shere, which means we want to go and play. So in Yoruba culture, ere is not ere, which is also a function of the arts. If you want a play, is called ere. So that's why a lot of people feel creativity is not work. It's something you do to play. You guys are not serious, Now, a large part of, I feel, our society is one, beginning to give a lot more value to the creative arts. It's happening because a lot of these so-called playful children are winning Grammys now. They have the world's attention. Their earning capacity, and it's way higher than the stodgy adults sitting in a suit in an office. Now, as that starts to happen, and you have an industry that now starts to create other spaces in the ecosystem that value the work. A lot of the people that value, for instance, Nollywood films, think because it's local and homegrown, they think it's rubbish. Now, there's a certain agreement with that in certain areas because it's compared unfavorably to work that's hundreds of years older, right? But we're missing key elements of the real value of it, right? People, if I've been educated in the Western system, I may not value Yoruba film as much as I should. And it is sad because if I decide to apply the right kind of value system to it, it's as important as Shakespeare. If I listen to Anoriki,
it is.
If I listen to, when I started as a filmmaker, I decided to be a more authentic storyteller, and I started to go back to my literary roots, and fortunately I studied English in the University of Illinois when we were still
that was where I did my youth service, but I didn't.
Yeah, you see. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, that's super fantastic. Yeah, I remember now. That's true. And that's how I come I did theater. I did it by mistake. I didn't want to do it, but it helped me so much. I just kind of stumbled into where I am right now. And when we're doing it, I now decided to go into the poetry of Anoriki. So the issue, and I realized this is deep. This is some deep stuff. As I thought, ethic itself would be when you go deep into the consciousness of it, right? Yeah. So that is where that value creation comes from. If somebody makes a film in Yoruba language, right, and the person goes in, the critics that criticize it should be people who know how to make that value. What has this person done with this film? Because I don't think a film that was a collaboration of so many different kind of gifted people can be an absolute waste. It can either be small and entertaining, just a laugh. It can be a skit, could have been one long skit, or there could be something in it you're not seeing, and it might not be your cup of tea. But you should understand the culture of what you are critiquing. And many critics, I want to speak from the critical angle, they are not cultural, they're not even enthusiasts of anything themselves, right? One of the reasons the Marvel comic book culture, as a comic book reader myself, I understand what they're talking about. I know why such and such would be. So if you have a so-called critic that's not a subscriber to a culture, is not necessarily invested in this thing going forward, and becomes a gatekeeper. How are people going to discover the value of something? If you have somebody who's transposed, and this is not a shame to anyone, so that's one that's transposed from a different culture, comes into a culture and says, I'm going to change the culture because I think my version of it is better, right? There's something that's going to happen. There's a shift. So I believe that critics should study. They should know exactly, if you're going to be a film critic, you better know film. You better know film. And not just Hollywood films. You must know African films. I had to go on a journey of watching African films, a lot of Francophone films myself. Just so that I'm like, how are these people discussing what's going on in their countries? Not every time you have to swing the camera around. What are the ways people are telling their stories? There's so many things you need to really expose yourself to. In order for you to be a critic, how do you, because I sometimes see critiques of films that are so snobbish. I'm like, this is not the intent of the film. I feel like I didn't want to serve you. How dare you go to a booker and be upset that they didn't give you a napkin to dab your cheeks?
True.
Yeah, and the food analogy is something I always use. It's like, and I takes it back to the idea of genreification and the idea of need for audience research. If we're really going to grow this space, what are the genres that we have? Nigerian film industry is mostly divided into Yoruba film, Hausa film, English film, and Igbo film. Yeah, Igbo film is also PG, depending on how much of a ghetto, how much you want to ghettoize the people that are coming from that segment. So you want to put everybody into small ghettos, right? Streamers are now supposed to be the urban guys that are one step above. But the reality of it is, what are we doing? What are the genres? How do critics, really educate the film goer who doesn't really want anything other than entertainment on what you are seeing?
I mean, sorry to cut you. There's a movie I watched recently, and this is truly no shade at all, no shade at all. But I had read the play as a student. I also studied literature. I read the play, and I had certain expectations about the lead character when well, other characters as well, because the play, just reading it in a one-dimensional format, painted certain pictures in my mind. And then when I saw the movie, I was a little bit confused. Now, I know if I were to be a critic, which I'm not a film critic, I'm just a movie lover. That's what I am, But I looked at that, those are the lens from which I looked at it, because we studied it. We had to write critical analysis and stuff. So we had to get into the cosmology, some of the literature, the language, etc. We had to go in to understand, because it wasn't my culture, And so I found a little bit of the movie like, oh, which audience? And that was a question I asked myself. Which audience was this being done for? Was it for the Tush Ajibota Nigerian audience, or was it for a totally foreign audience? And these are some of the questions I believe people like you, directors, have to struggle with.
I'll say this. A long time ago, I learned, and it's one of the things in the industry. But what I learned about, if you're doing what's an adaptation, you have to satisfy multiple audiences. And this is where the advertising becomes, knowing that whenever you're making something, you have to kind of keep in mind who your audience is, even as they're being creative. Because we're trained to be creative, but also to have a direction. If you're making an adaptation, the first audience, the first people that are going to be people that have read the text. And it will make sense to serve them first before you take the story into where your mind is going. This is my own belief, and maybe I'm institutionalized from advertising. I would say you serve them first. I would think that would be the approach. And as much as possible, it must feel familiar. The second thing would be the audiences you're trying to recruit who don't have any idea of the text. And they would be the ones that are brought into this world, and they have to ooh and ah, and it's not a familiar place to them. So that sense of wonder, I don't know how to I don't know how to, but that's just my own thoughts. I've not even seen the work because I have an idea of the work. I haven't seen the work, and I had not read the text too. I used to avoid Bolshevika back in the day, back when I was in English. I found his work super turgid. So I wasn't, but I'd heard about it and I'd read a few other texts. So I would say as much as possible to be faithful to certain elements whilst not being and it's really the world of creativity. I really don't know how to have a formula for it.
I know there's no formula. I was just a little bit baffled. I was just a little bit baffled because I I read, you read about all this thing about creative tension, building up
Yeah.
to a climax, and then looking at the characters, how do they call it, the dilemmas is going to, because that wasn't an easy story. That wasn't an easy
No.
story. That wasn't an easy play at all. I mean, and kudos to whoever produced it and directed it, and kudos to taking on the Wole Soyinka play. I mean, real kudos to that, because even the comedies, I've only watched the comedies on stage, on theater, yeah, Brother Jerry and all those ones, yeah, Lionel and Joel. I've only watched those ones on stage, and I think it kind of gets a little bit easier when you do it on stage. Yeah.
Yeah, because the stage is a next. So after the text, the words paint the pictures in your head. Stage is the next stage, because you know that this is make believe. You can see the edges of the procedure. You can see everything, and you have to push yourself. You have to narrow your gaze into character, and these are the actors creating something. In film, you have to believe everything. In film, everything I'm seeing has to be super authentic, or something I accept as authentic. I would my own thing. It's really crazy, because I'm not even trying to be careful. I'm seeing, because I'm actually, we're working for the past 2 years on a book adaptation of a relatively younger novel, and our journey has been crazy, and we've gone through several writers have approached the same text, and we just finished a workshop, and we now discovered more things about the text. And one of the conversations I had with the team, I said, guys, I know we have a lot of mentors. We have a lot of foreign mentors who are interested in making the work. It's going to be great. They want us to address it to the audience of today. And I said, let's not forget the actual, where the story comes from. Because the one thing, and I think it's very, very important, is the familiarity people must have with the text. I live in Lagos. This story is set in Lagos, right? And whatever class, I know I have a class filter, but still, I have at one time lived in the other side of Winupeju towards Mushin, right? So I can see, smell, and recreate that experience.
Yeah.
And that ability to be able to recreate those things and make it familiar. That's what I kind of think about the director's work is people the story building world it mustn't feel so far removed from what people think they saw in their minds when they were reading the text. That familiarity, and I think as whenever you try and revamp or rejig this work, it's the one place one has to really, really be careful with when you're making an adaptation. I haven't seen the movie, I've only seen trailers. I felt, and I heard a lot of the feedback, but I didn't make a comment. And I said, this adaptation thing, if I see this thing the way it should be done, the idea is to make it familiar. If you're going to be add layers to it, creatively, people must feel that it's in the same spirit of the tone that the author was trying to do. It must feel the same, even though it's younger. And I've seen it as the people that have succeeded at book adaptations, mostly the foreign guys, have been people who capture the spirit of the book, right? Then added their own layer through one of the many talents, or maybe production design wise, they took it up a notch, and the locations were much more vivid than what you read. The wardrobe was really amazing, and the performances took the storytelling to a whole new level, But at the same time, it still felt like the what do you call it again? The bread and beans they were going that you wanted to eat. Because the text for me, I think it's like that. It's like a familiar breakfast. I always like to use food analogy. You must feel like you're not eating something different. It mustn't taste it must seem organic to a certain extent. Except your idea, you have such a great idea. You built it on. You looked at the themes really hard. I mean, I'm saying for our audience, it must feel familiar. But the people, if you've done Hamlet, if you've done 50 years of Hamlet, that is when you can now start saying, my Hamlet will not be familiar. My Hamlet is going to be in space. I'm going to set Hamlet on an asteroid, right?
Yeah.
Because then people will be like, oh yeah, this
they have something to compare it with. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not to compare with. We've seen. That's why the Hamlets are going to be black people, because we've seen white people do enough Hamlets, right? Even one day Othello will be actually done by a white guy.
I'm looking forward to when James Bond will be Idris Elba, and that's my story.
He's too old. He can't do it anymore. He's too old for it.
Yeah,
he's out of the game.
He's
John Boyega that will do it.
That makes me really sad. Yeah, but Idris Elba is my guy.
Yeah. He's doing something with Mo. He's here and Mo collaborated to do a slate of African films. That just happened a couple of days ago.
Okay.
So he's bringing his Hollywood investments and they're passing it through that. And I was asked about it. I said that this is phenomenal. Why I think it's phenomenal. Whatever people, I said, no, it shouldn't. I said, no. If he does it, it sparks off, and the investment works.
Yeah.
It sparks off other ideas. People are like, hey, so these people could do it. And it brings up all of this. The Netflix coming in to Nigeria, the first time Netflix came to Nigeria, they didn't really do much. But once people saw where Netflix was going, without have Paramount just opened. Paramount is now in Nigeria. You have Amazon.
But we need to round up now so that we can do this other one in part 2. There's so much more.
It's okay. I hope I answered that question though, because I know I hope I answered the question.
You answered the question, but I think it's one of those. For me, having looked at it, I'll just say, number one, you have to give every creative person comes to it, whether you're a producer, director, costume, whatever. There is that creative, I'll call it uncertainty. You understand? And so because I have experienced it myself, not being a filmmaker, but I've been on the side of creative, I know there is that. So I give grace, no matter what, I give grace. And I also give kudos for courage to tackle difficult things. It's not people who can do difficult things. And it's when you do the difficult things that people get to notice. And if we just stay in our comfort zone, how will we get better? We need to tackle those tough things, and they're too hard meat for a change. Yes. So you did explain it, and for me, it's no shade, no negative criticism. It's just an observation, and I believe observations help people, do better.
But it's just my thoughts. I've seen before I became a filmmaker, I was an avid, so I just used to always, check things, and this thoughts aren't even as a filmmaker. So my thoughts would be, if I was watching this, what would I want people to see? And that's sort of how I operate. If I was watching this, would I think this was a good move? And that's how I sort of check myself. I don't drink my Kool-Aid.
Well, guys, you've been listening for the past hour and a little bit to Tolu Ajayi. And talking about we haven't even talked about the director's cut and the theatrical cut. But we are going to come back, next week we're going to come back and we are going to talk about that and a few other things. I want to talk about AI. I want to talk about films like Avatar, how there's a new intersection of, how you call it, gaming, anime, etc., coming into film. How do you direct that? How do you direct all those things? How do you deal with stereotypes?
I'm scared of AI.
No, don't be. Don't be. But we'll come back and talk about all of that in our next episode. But Tolu, thank you very much for
Thank you, Julia.
giving so fully and wholesomely of yourself, and guys, see you next week, Tolu. See you. Thank you.
Thank you.